My best friend of 8 years was standing in that conference room, telling a room full of investors that she built our company alone, and I was standing just outside the door, listening to every single word. Let me back up. Because 20 minutes before that moment, I was the happiest I had been in years. Sarah and I had been building Luma Analytics together since we were 24. We met freshman year of college, bonded over terrible dining hall coffee and a shared obsession with data systems, and never really separated after that. She was my maid of honor. I was hers. When her marriage fell apart 3 years ago, I was the one sleeping on her couch, talking her through it until 2 in the morning. She knew every embarrassing thing about me. Every fear. Every dream. And the dream we shared, the one we had been chasing for 4 years, was landing a serious institutional investor. Not the small angel rounds we had scraped together. A real partner. Someone who would take Luma to the next level. Victor Hale was that person. His firm, Hale Capital, had backed 3 companies that became household names. When his assistant called us and asked if we were available to meet, Sarah and I screamed in my kitchen like we were 20 years old again. The meeting was scheduled for 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning at the Hale Capital offices downtown. I had barely slept. I got there at 9:30 because I am always early, always. It is practically a personality flaw. The receptionist told me I was the first to arrive and showed me to a waiting area just down the hall from the main conference room. I sat there for maybe 5 minutes before I realized I had left my laptop bag in the car. I went back to get it. When I came back through the lobby, the receptionist was away from her desk, and I could hear voices coming from the conference room. The door was not fully closed. I assumed it was Victor's team setting up. I was going to knock. I had my hand raised. And then I heard Sarah's voice. Clear. Confident. In full presentation mode. Luma Analytics is my company. I founded it 4 years ago after identifying a critical gap in mid-market data infrastructure. I built the client relationships, developed the go-to-market strategy, and scaled us to our current revenue position entirely through my own network and vision. I stood there with my hands still raised in the air. She kept going. My technical lead, Maya, has been a valuable employee. She handles the back-end work. I intend to keep her on in that capacity going forward, but the leadership and creative direction of Luma have always been mine. My technical lead, Maya. Employee. Keep her on. I felt the floor tilt under me. I am not being dramatic. I genuinely reached out and put my hand on the wall because I did not trust my legs. I had written every line of code that powered Luma's core product. I had designed the architecture. I had pulled 3 all-nighters in a row to fix a critical bug the week before our biggest client went live. I had done all of that while Sarah handled sales and marketing, which I had always respected, always valued, always credited her for equally. Equally. That was the word burning in my chest. I had always said we built this equally. She had apparently never felt the same way. I don't know how long I stood in that hallway. Long enough for Sarah to finish her pitch. Long enough to hear Victor Hale ask a few questions and for Sarah to answer them smoothly, without hesitation, as if she had been rehearsing this version of our story for months. Maybe she had. When I finally walked into that conference room, my face was completely still. I have no idea how. Sarah looked up, and for one fraction of a second, one tiny, telling fraction, something flickered behind her green eyes. Not guilt. Not panic. Calculation. She smiled at me like I was a colleague arriving for a meeting. Maya, perfect timing. Victor, this is my technical lead I was telling you about. I shook Victor Hale's hand. I sat down. I smiled. And I made a decision in that moment that would change everything. I was not going to blow this up in that room. Not yet. Because I needed to understand exactly how deep this went before I did anything at all. But as I sat across from Sarah Whitfield, my best friend, my maid of honor, the woman I had trusted with every secret I had ever had, I felt something go very, very quiet inside me. The kind of quiet that comes right before something breaks. Because sitting across from her in that conference room, I started replaying the last 6 months in my head, and I realized that what I had just overheard was not a moment of weakness or a single terrible choice. This had been a plan. A long, careful, deliberate plan. And I had helped her execute every single step of it. Stay tuned for the next part.